So you might not know this, but there's actually multiple ways to interact with Claude Code. The one behind me is the most popular when you think of Claude Code. It is within the terminal. So if you go into Windows and you type in terminal and you open this up here and then you have Claude installed, you just pop in the word Claude and then it asks you to confirm basically if you trust this folder. Hopefully you trust your own folders, and then there you go. You have Claude. And then you can connect this to a specific file and then work from within that. A second very similar way to use Claude Code is to hop into either Cursor, VS Code, or any other IDE that you're comfortable with. IDE meaning these user interfaces where you can interact with your code. You may have a chat, and you also have a terminal. Technically, IDE is Integrated Development Environment. What that means is basically the place where you handle your code. So again, in terminal here this time, you'd go into this and you type in Claude. And then, oops, without a misspelling, you type in Claude, and then from there, you see a very familiar face with this orange robotic guy. And you can even close out the internal chat that they have there and basically just function off of Claude and then all the code that you have here on the side. Yet another version is just to use the integrated agent that they already have in here, and then you can just click on a Claude model. Opus 4.7, Opus 4.5. You can even add older models if you'd like. And then last but not least is the desktop Claude app. Basically this here where you have the chats, you have the co-work, and you have Claude Code in a different tab. And then like any other of these tools, you can basically have a chat and then have some code changes being done by Claude. I just wanted to make this because I find a lot of people being overly concerned with the technical aspects, the tech stack, the model, and all that stuff. And to be honest with you, for most of you that are builders, you're focusing on building a product for yourself, for a business, or for your own business. I think that most of it is already taken care of as long as you can have access to the base LLM. The only caveat is that within Cursor, they do have their own parameters on top of the LLM. So if you want the most raw version, then yes, I would say go with the terminal or the Claude Code desktop. But when people talk to me about using Claude Code, I want to make sure that I give them all these options because there is a big difference in the user interface and the experience. So to show you a small edit within the terminal, in this case using the Claude Code terminal like we saw here, you'll see this here. And this is what's called a diff. Basically the difference between your old code, what's in red, and your new code, what's in green. And I made a small change in the terms of the title here just to basically show you an example. But this is one small change. And when you have big changes, these diffs can become quite cumbersome and big, and there's can be in different sections. And I've always found that reviewing code in this terminal is not as clean and simple as I'd like it to be. To show you the difference, I made the same change using Cursor, and here you can see the exact same diff. But the thing I like about it is that you can expand it further. You can click into it and have it open up here in the center view or wherever your view is. You can have every line that goes through it. And you just have a little bit more ease in terms of the interface. And again, for someone just getting started and you want to get to know code, I think this is less intimidating, more manageable, and especially if you're starting to make bigger changes, you can start to see kind of in very clear difference the basically like thinking of the agent, the changes that the agent made, and then like a small summary based on what you did there. So I personally like this, especially when I was in the early stages. This made it very helpful to see what specific lines are being changed and to basically go line by line and see all the different changes rather than having this terminal, which is just not as clean. It's a lot more text to go through. Once I started to expand from small bugs and small changes into changes of the entire architecture or features and pages, I really wanted to make sure that I understood what was going on. And I just found it a lot easier to use Cursor to see the difference in code, the thought process, and so on. I gotta be honest, the Claude Code desktop app is kind of like the little brother that I don't pay enough attention to. I used it a couple times to try it out. I know some people actually use it as their full-time thing, but when I found it back in the day, it wasn't connecting cleanly. There was a small technical issue. I had already downloaded Cursor. It was gonna take a lot for me to switch from one to another, and I just found it a lot better to move into Cursor since I was already paying for it and all that stuff. That does bring me to an important concept though. So with Cursor, you have Cursor billing. So you prepay for like a month of usage, and that is separate from your Claude plan. So if you're using a Claude plan, you can use Claude Code or Claude Desktop under that same plan. So if you're paying the $100 a month like I am, that's all included within that. To be clear, if you're using this terminal inside of any IDE, you're tapping into your Claude plan. As you can see here, it says Claude Max. That's the $100 a month plan that I pay for. That has nothing to do with the billing that I have with Cursor. So I just wanted to clear that up because any of these ways are valid uses of Claude Code. I know software engineers are going to have their opinion. I know newbies to the space are going to have their opinion, and they're all viable. As long as you're using the underpinning LLM of Claude, you are technically using Claude Code. But at the end of the day, I don't want you to get too hung up on the tech stack or anything like that. Codex has been coming out and been giving Claude a run for its money. Just focusing on getting the job done is the most important part. If you're playing around with models and trying to find the most optimal, just be aware that what you're doing is essentially trying out different engines in sports cars. You may be just trying to find the difference between 110 miles per hour and 130 miles per hour, which can be a lot if you're racing, but for most people's day-to-day, you're just going to the grocery store and back, or you're just going down the street and back. So most of these models are going to be just fine for the things that you're building day-to-day and the tasks that you're doing day to day. Hopefully this added some clarity. If you have any more questions about Claude Code, AI coding, vibe coding in general, feel free to check out my school. There's some more content there, or leave a comment below and I'll get back to you.